A warm welcome to you and thank you for joining us on Breakfast Central, Dr. Issa.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, JAMB records show a sharp increase in malpractices surge. What do you think is fueling this?
Well, part of it is really the fact that we don't have enough universities for the population of children in the first place. So that's already a barrier to entry. And culturally, we have a challenge with our children going to polytechnics and monotechnics. Everybody has to go to a university, whether they're academically strong or otherwise. And so you have people struggling for the few spaces, trying to do everything that they can, even in spaces where literacy levels are so low. I mean, in some of the northeastern states, we have literacy levels as low as 14%, and they're supposed to take the same assessment as those children that are thriving in states where you have literacy levels up to 78, 90%. So that disparity in the foundation of education is already a problem. That is, part of what is contributing to the malpractice. The children are not, let's just say they're not literate enough to even succeed in that exam. And I dare say that instead of focusing on remediating the literacy levels, we're doing other things with our curriculum. So that's the first thing I'd like to say. Obviously, you change exam procedures, you say, okay, everyone's going on the computer now, and Joy in some village school somewhere has never used a computer. So of course she's going to struggle. Of course they're going to ask somebody, please, what should I press? What should I do? We're creating room. We're opening up opportunities for our children to fail, unfortunately, or try and succeed the negative way. Let's just put it that way.
All right. And now, thank you for setting the record for why we're seeing the mass increase in malpractices. But let's talk again about failure. The reports are showing that as of 2025, we had 75% of students who applied or registered for JAMB scoring lower than 200%, 200, which is the cutoff. I remember my cutoff from over a decade ago. I had over 200, 269, if I remember correctly. But now we can barely see that. What can we attribute these causes to? Taking note of the fact that this isn't just the first time. Last year, we saw 76%. Now it's 75%. So what are the causes? Why do we keep having children struggling? Do we maybe need to adjust what the cutoff is? Or is there multiple challenges? Are there multiple challenges across different sectors?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said before, you can't have children who can barely read pass an exam that they're required to read, not just to read and recall information, but they're required to process, to analyze, and to apply their learning in different contexts. The JAMB exam, if you remember a few years ago, the minister said they've moved it from just being knowledge heavy to getting the children to reason, to analyze. How much of that reasoning and analysis is happening in our secondary schools? If you go to the average public secondary school, the teachers write the notes on the board, the children copy the notes, there's hardly any conversation, there's hardly any processing or application. So our schools are functioning at the lower levels of cognition. Just what do you remember, what do you understand? Two lowest levels. The higher levels or higher order thinking involves creating new materials, doing some synthesis, doing the big work. If I break it down and say, remember in secondary school or in WAEC, remember those questions that they will ask you, okay, so explain what is the reason for this and why? A lot of us didn't like answering the and why questions because it meant we had to explain an opinion that we had deep understanding of. When all I did was copy the notes off the board and put in my notebook, and I am not good at cramming, how am I supposed to succeed? So that's level one. Level two, you introduce digital competencies into the mix. So my literacy level is low, my digital competency level is low, and I'm supposed to pass this exam miraculously. Like, earlier I had the conversation, the governor should pray. Well, sometimes I think, I'm a Christian, right? I'm a practicing Christian, but sometimes I think in this country, we kind of abdicate our civic responsibility and expect God to just come and miraculously go, whoosh, we've all passed. We have to read. We have to understand. Our teachers have to be present to teach us. So when the foundation is faulty, the background is faulty, what are our children supposed to do? We're setting them up to fail. We're setting them up to fail. This happens every year, and every year parents will talk. And the one factor that has not changed is the way we are teaching these children, the way we are helping them gain the levels of understanding they need to be able to pass that exam independently. We have not adjusted instructional strategies. We have not adjusted the content of teacher training. We haven't done any of that. We made a few changes to the curriculum. I dare say again, literacy levels, digital competency, I don't see any change. You know, so when the parents are surprised, you know, when civil society is surprised, those of us in academia are not surprised. Like the JAMB registrar says, we're not surprised because this is a true reflection of what is going on in our country. And until the people in the corridors of power who know themselves, until they decide that Nigeria cannot continue to function at lower levels, we may come here again next year and say the same thing. After all, the average for the last 5 years is actually 79%. So this year was slightly better, but again, we cannot continue to perpetuate this and keep talking about it. The people responsible must take responsibility for it. The people, the leaders in the Ministry of Education, what is happening to our school curricula? What can we do differently? We know what we can do differently. Can we improve instructional strategies? Can these children even have the books? When children are hungry, I mean, you know, I've taught for many years, right? I've been in education 31 years now. There's nothing worse than teaching a hungry child. I'm telling you, you just see that film over their eyes. They're not internalizing anything. So some teachers will buy bread, will buy biscuit, you know, will buy this just to help so that the children are even present. I understand that the students are angry. They're frustrated. You know, they even had to go and take this exam. It was like at 6:30 a.m. Who has eaten at 6:30 a.m.? Who has, you know, where's the internet access? So you don't blame the children for being angry and protesting, but people who can should make the difference. And there are people in this country, our leaders can, if they really pay attention to this. After all, the banking sector was reformed many years ago. So why can't the education sector be reformed?
With the education sector being reformed, there's been an ongoing conversation even up until now. But let's also look at the introduction of technology. I mean, we've talked about, you know, education in itself, which, whether we like it or not, is slowly declining, and there are calls for an improvement on the educational sector. But CBT, you know, technology and so on, some parents have said that it could have also been a cursor that led to many students not doing too well. Because I remember being in my school, I was privileged to go to a private, primary school where we had just 2 computers for over 100 and something students. And the only time you would get to the computer, they would say, "This is a mouse." What did I say? And you repeat. You hardly have time to touch the mouse. And if you do, they say, "Stand up, it was time up." Now, we've seen it continue up until now, regardless of the fact that technology has improved. Do you also think that it could be a reason why there's a blatant failure in JAMB? Because how many people know how to use a computer system?
Absolutely. You know, access is not equitable. Access is available in some areas of our country more than it is in others. In a lot of the public schools, the children don't have computers at all. I had the opportunity to work with a group supporting Lagos State, and one of the teachers, so proud of him, Samuel, galvanized resources and collaborated with his school administrator, and they changed one classroom into a computer room, a library, and a clinic. One single room, and they got 4 computers. So, and he specifically has 87 children on average in his classrooms. What is he supposed to do? He has tried to make a difference in his own little way. That's so commendable. We celebrated his efforts and all of that. I don't understand why, we will spend millions having conferences, having symposia on how to address the education system without addressing the education system. We will have a conference in Abuja, go to Rwanda, go to Finland, go here, go here. All that money could have been put into giving the schools computers. So absolutely, digital literacy levels are very, very low in rural communities compared to urban centers. So the children in urban centers whose parents maybe or auntie, some neighbor have computers are already set up to succeed. And the children who are in the more suburban and rural areas are already at a disadvantage. So access is not equitable. Yes, children who have experienced that, who have used that, have more access. But I have to say, though, that the provision of technology itself, and I mean internet access, was also a problem. We know how it is when, sometimes Zoom glitches and we're all struggling to find the strongest network. Now imagine 1.5 million children trying to access a platform at the same time.
At the same time.
In this country. Of course, there are going to be glitches. And because we as a nation are not comfortable with those kinds of large-scale operations when it comes to technology, yes, there will be problems.
So how do we then circumvent this problem? Are we going back to, do you recommend that we go back to the days when we had to write with our pen and our papers? Or is there a way that we could get around these technology glitches?
Differentiation would, if we have to differentiate effectively, you would say that, look, you cannot put somebody who has never used a computer to do a digital exam. It is not equitable access. So we differentiate for those in the more rural areas and for the urban areas. However, the real solution is to embed digital literacy, digital competencies into the curriculum, provide the infrastructure so that Nigeria does not fall behind the rest of the world. Nigeria, we believe we are the giant of Africa. Unfortunately, in this area, the education sector specifically, we are not the giant of Africa. We're way behind our contemporaries across West Africa, not even East and South. We're way behind Eastern and Southern Africa. So we cannot regress because of challenges. What we need to do is remediate those challenges, provide that, differentiation, honestly, because, you can't tell me, for example, the nurses in the rural areas still do the manual blood pressure check, and then they count and all. Meanwhile, in the hospitals and urban centers, they connect you to a machine, tap, 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 and it's done. Those two nurses have different levels of education. The teachers need the education because if I can't use a computer, you want me to teach a child? To teach them what? I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to teach the child? So you see that the problem really is around us, the adults who are supposed to be taking responsibility for these children. We are not taking responsibility. A lot of the children are bypassing us, by the way. They're going ahead, they're doing things online, and then we're quick to label them Yahoo boys and girls. Meanwhile, if we provide formal access, structured access, we teach them digital safety, online, we protect them digitally, then they won't access the wrong sites. But we just leave them to their own devices and expect a miracle. The adults are really the problem here.
Now, Dr. Issa, from our discussion this morning, we've highlighted quite a lot of the issues with the Nigerian educational sector. Now, let's talk solutions. There's a whole gamut of problems, but what are the low-hanging fruits? What would you, if you were in a position to prioritize solutions, what could we do in the immediate future to stop this decline and begin to address it one solution at a time?
First solution, teacher training has to be transformed. We cannot continue churning out the teachers we're churning out because they're not able to educate the children, fundamentally, because the limitation of the child is typically the limitation of the teacher. The factors that affect children's ability to succeed in school, 50% depend on the child. So if I'm hungry, I'm upset, I don't come, my mind is not there, 50% gone. Then the next most important factor is the teacher, 30%. If the teacher is not present, the teacher is not kind, the teacher is not interested, the teacher is not competent, 30% gone. 20% depends on your parental background, the infrastructure, even things like temperature, if it's too hot, if it's too cold, things like that. So combine all those factors together, you know that we may not be able to adjust children's backgrounds, we may not be able to feed them, but if we introduce the feeding program, which is my second solution, introduce the feeding program in schools so we have more children wanting to come to school and stay in school because they will get a meal. Fix teacher training, introduce the feeding program, and please, can we have a strong focus on literacy education and digital competencies? We cannot continue to fall back behind the world. Too many of us are going out there to import education. Too many of us are going out there to gain access. We have so many foreign certifications because the quality of that quality is not available. My final solution, public-private partnership. Please, can the private universities all set up a department for education? I appeal, I beg, because if you check them out, because education is not as lucrative, most of them do not have a department for education. So if this University of Science and Technology just have a faculty of science education, department for medicals, so that you raise teachers, competent people who can support children with STEM education, digital competencies, etc. If every private university opens up that department for education, then we can improve the quality being churned out. Last one is my controversial one, and you will forgive me for this one. You see that NCE certification, in my humble opinion, we have upgraded as a nation beyond that. Why are we still churning out NCEs? We have over 200 of them, privately owned, and somebody does not pass English or maths in JAMB, for example. They can't get into a university. Oh, go and do NCE, maths education, geography education, PhD. Then that's the person that's coming to teach your child and my child, or my grandchildren now, because my children are adults. Come and teach them. So, and then you expect them to be able to push high order thinking. It's not a miracle. So can we fix that NCE? In my humble opinion, it was set up, I don't want to go into the background, it was set up originally, yes, but I think as a nation, we have outgrown that certification, and we need to be honest with ourselves and do something about it. That certification needs to be upgraded.
All right.
The content of NCEs needs to change, which, anyway, yeah.
I mean,
Those are my solutions.
you've highlighted very valid points. There needs to be a total overhaul of the training for students, for teachers, as well as, to ensure that the systems do not fail them. But speaking about the system failing them, many believe that the glitches that we've seen, or the poor performance that we've seen in the JAMB, in the 2025 JAMB results, is not necessarily because the students are underprepared, but also because of the technical challenges on the part of JAMB. Now, we see Alex Onyia, the CEO of Educare, has shared several tweets to justify this perspective. He stated that a number of them, I'm going to give you examples. He talked about somebody who scored 314 last year, Ofili Onyekachi Emmanuel, at last year's JAMB, but this year scored 167 after studying way harder, and that there are a number of young people who have threatened to take their lives. What they're asking is that JAMB shows the students their score sheets so that they can see what they failed. Because they said even on the day of the examination that they had complained to some of the invigilators saying that some of the questions were incomplete, and the invigilator said there's nothing that they can do about it. At the end of the day, if we confirm that this is true, that means JAMB is playing with the life and the destiny of Nigerian young people, and they're threatening, they want to file a civil action, a class action against JAMB. So how do you address a situation like this? The allegations by these students who believe that they did better than JAMB is willing to share, the demand to see their sheets, and even the possibility of a class action against JAMB.
A class action against JAMB is valid. We all have a responsibility to express our opinions. And I honestly agree with Alex that, yes, there's so many glitches that have caused challenges. However, if we back up to the setting up, how do you use that level of technology across the country with our current internet challenges. We can even see the glitches we're experiencing here, and it's just one video. So yes, we saw videos of a girl who was crying, saying she kept waiting for something to load. She was on maybe 30 questions, and before it rolled over and loaded, it was at the end of the test. Some people could not submit a total score. Again, having JAMB as the barrier to entry to universities is a major issue. This one high stakes assessment that justifies or validates my 12 years of education and is the entry, is the portal via which I can access university, is a problem on its own. Private universities all around the world are having their own entrance access systems. In fact, there's a university in South Africa, if I remember correctly, that does not use standardized testing to get children to enter the school. They do their own test. And a lot of it is really psychometric analysis, understanding what their interests are, what they prefer. Of course, check their digital competencies, their literacy levels, etc. So that's a whole advanced conversation. But honestly, in this case, digital glitches caused mayhem. That is no doubt. However, these results are not outlier results. These results are in tandem with historical data. Over the last 5 years, Nigerian children have been functioning in that 70-something%, 80-something% failure levels. On average is 79. So this is not a unique case. That is what I'm trying to highlight. Yes, there were digital glitches, absolutely. Challenges with technology, especially in other areas or in some areas more than others. But historically, the children have been underperforming. So can we address the entire package? And if I must say, this is what the parents are protesting about. We were not doing well without technology. Now you've thrown in technology. How are we supposed to perform better? Of course, you're setting us up to fail. It's like, a setup, as the young people say. So how to reverse this system is really going to be a challenge, almost like a COVID situation, because if you now nullify all the results, what happens to the children who have now hit their scores to be able to get into university? What happens to those ones if you annul all the results? Are you going to rerun the tests, as I think they should? Rerun the test in certain centers, rerun the entire thing. But you know that to rerun that test, they have to set a brand new set of questions because people have seen the questions already. Brand new set of questions, set them up online and all of that. And you know how we are with change in this country, it's going to take a long time. So I don't know that our leaders in the ministry, in JAMB, the registrar and his team have that, manpower, courage to be able to rerun the tests. Give children the opportunity to succeed. It will be fantastic. What we're saying is, our leaders in power, please can you do something about this? Please can you address the situation with concrete solutions like we've suggested? Rerun the tests, reset the exams. In the areas where there were challenges, you could have had paper versions that could have been uploaded because it's the same test. It was just put online. So it could have been printed. Paper versions could have been printed as a backup, and that could have been shared. There are other ways to mitigate this situation as opposed to just saying, everybody go online and, people are stuck.
Well, let's also look at the public and private schools. These days, I remember in the past as well, many would always allude to the public schools, especially the government-owned schools, as one of the best, especially doing well when it comes to, examinations like JAMB, WAEC, SSC, you name them. But these days, it's starting to look like it's quite different. The private schools are seem to take the lead. However, what's your take on that? And secondly, the president approved 3.5 trillion naira to better the educational sector. When do you think Nigerians and educationists like yourself will start to feel the impact of that 3.5 trillion naira? Will it be anytime soon?
I'm trying not to chuckle because I doubt that it will be anytime soon. And we are not, I speak for myself and some of my colleagues who are, let's say, education activists. We're not necessarily keen on seeing the money. We just want action. Again, that money should not be deployed to sending people on conferences to go and observe what educators are doing across the world. It should be deployed to rolling out practical solutions. Put the computers in the schools. Provide training to the teachers in the schools so that where they are, they're able to use their limited resources to deliver the curriculum. We cannot just, the things cannot be done in silos, right? Intervention, because there's so many challenges, the interventions have to happen simultaneously. If I go back to what you said about the public schools and the private schools, so there's a school I'm working with now, and, you know, again, one of these private schools, as people call it, one of the British schools coming into Nigeria. And some people have said, oh, all these people are coming to colonize us in education. And I said, no, this is not a form of neocolonialism. This is a response to the fact that Nigerians are the biggest educational import. And because of exchange rates and all, Nigerians are not able to go. The schools are coming here. So if Nigerians, our brain is attractive to some people, what are we doing? What is the government doing for us as a nation? Invest in our system so we don't have to go and pay millions and millions or thousands and thousands to external players in the game. That disparity is getting wider. Those who know and can, and those who don't know and can't, that disparity is getting wider. And that is the disparity that the private sector has begun to mitigate. And so you have in Lagos State, for example, over 20,000 private schools, and they're functional. The Office of Quality Assurance visits, you know, to ensure standards and things like that. By the way, these are the registered ones. We're not talking about the schools that just pop up. So without the private schools, we will not even be able to educate our populace. My appeal, again, is for multinationals, more of these bigger schools to adopt, to support the public schools with infrastructure, with all that wonderful training they give their teachers in-house. Can we share? Because it's not enough to just have a few Nigerians well-trained. Over 50% of our nation is under age 18. We need that populace educated. We need us to be strong. We need us to know what we're doing to chart the course of a good future. That public-private partnership will improve the education infrastructure, if you will, because I don't think government can do it alone. 3.5 billion, in my opinion, is a joke. What are we going to spend that on? Only teacher training, or only computers, or only buildings, or only, what exactly are we going to spend that on? Other countries are spending up to, I think the UN recommends up to 26% or so of the national budget on education. Ours is about 8%. We're not ready, honestly. And it's quite sad for people like me, and what we encourage everybody who can, do what you can in your sphere of influence. Make a difference to that one child, make a difference to that one school, one teacher, but please and please, can we partner? Can we collaborate more so that we have more children empowered, more people strengthened, to make a difference? We can't keep complaining about the problems without implementing solutions one at a time.
Dr. Joy Issa, thank you for your time with us this morning and exploring the various means by which we can correct the ills in Nigeria's education sector. I think our primary expectation now will be to see a response from JAMB regarding the discrepancies in the results. And then, like you suggested, giving these students a chance to rewrite the exams, in the places where there were discrepancies. Over 8,000 results as evidence, or 8,000 people coming out to complain. There has to be something that should be done about that. Thank you for your time with us this morning.
Absolutely.